What if the person everyone ignored held the answer to the one thing money, power, and education couldn't fix? Stay till the end to discover how one man's humility outshined the pride of 100 doctors and changed a mafia boss forever. Back in Index Pointing Right, don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that prove miracles can come from the most unexpected hands. The sterile white hallways of St. Harlow's private hospital reeked of fear that morning. Armed men in black suits lined every corner. Nurses whispered and trembled, afraid to make eye contact. Everyone knew who was upstairs, Don Alessandro Romano, the most feared mafia boss in New York's underground. His only son, Matteo, lay unconscious in the ICU, his body shutting down without warning. 30 specialists, 2 neurologists for cardiologists, and still nothing, roared Alessandro, slamming his fist on the marble wall. You're doctors, not magicians. Find out what's killing my boy. Dr. Lewis, the chief physician, swallowed hard. Sir, we've done every test imaginable. His organs are fine, but his body keeps rejecting oxygen. We can't explain it. The mafia boss turned, his sharp blue eyes burning with desperation. Then bring me someone who can. For days, top doctors flew in from around the world. London, Geneva, Tokyo, each leaving more confused than the last. Matteo's pulse flickered weaker with every hour. And as the boy's breathing slowed, hope began to fade. No one noticed the janitor, Elias, quietly mopping the floors outside the ICU. An old man with silver hair and worn-out shoes. He worked the night shift no one wanted. He moved slowly, humming softly to himself, his eyes gentle but observant. He'd seen many people pass through that hospital, broken, rich, poor, dying, and he'd learned to tell when something didn't feel right. And right now, Matteo didn't just look sick. He looked poisoned by something invisible. That night, while the doctors argued in the conference room, Elias passed by the ICU again. Matteo's monitor beeped erratically. The boy's skin was turning blue despite the oxygen mask. Suddenly, the room filled with shouting. He's crashing, yelled a nurse. We're losing him. Elias froze. His mop clattered to the floor. Then, as if pulled by something beyond logic, he stepped forward. Please, he whispered to the terrified nurse. Let me look. Dr. Lewis turned sharply. You're a janitor. Get out. But before he could be dragged away, Matteo's hand twitched. A small tremor. Elias leaned closer, eyes narrowing on the boy's chest, and then he smelled it. A faint metallic tang. Not blood, not medicine, something chemical. Stop, Elias said firmly. It's not his lungs. It's the air. What are you talking about? Dr. Lewis scoffed. Elias walked to the wall, pulling the oxygen hose from the tank. He sniffed, then looked horrified. This tank is contaminated. The room froze. Dr. Lewis frowned. That's impossible. These tanks are sterilized daily. But Elias shook his head. Not this one. Smell it. There's cleaning solvent in it, the same kind they use downstairs in the maintenance wing. They tested the tank immediately. The results came back minutes later, positive for chemical contamination. The boy had been breathing in toxins instead of oxygen for hours. When Dr. Lewis switched the tank and flushed Matteo's system, the monitors began to stabilize. Slowly, the boy's heartbeat returned to normal. The color crept back into his skin. The nurses gasped. One whispered, He's coming back. Alessandro burst into the room, panting. What happened? Dr. Lewis hesitated. His pride made him stammer. It was the janitor, sir. He found the issue. The mafia boss turned slowly toward Elias. Their eyes met, power and humility colliding. Alessandro said, stepping closer. You saved my son? Elias nodded quietly. I just saw what others couldn't. Sometimes the answers hide where pride refuses to look. The room was silent. Even the monitors seemed to pause. Then Alessandro did something no one expected. He knelt down, tears welling in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. You saved my family. Elias gave a faint smile. No, sir. He was meant to live. I just cleaned the air. But that was only the beginning. Because what no one knew was how Elias had recognized the contamination so quickly, or why he seemed to know more about medicine than any janitor should. That secret was about to change everything. The hospital had never been quieter. The only sound was Mateo's steady breathing, a rhythm of life everyone thought they'd lost. But while relief washed over the doctors and nurses, Alessandro Romano couldn't take his eyes off the janitor who'd done what 100 experts couldn't. "Who are you really, Elias?" he asked, his voice a mix of suspicion and awe. Elias looked down at his mop, his reflection faint in the polished floor. "Just the man who cleans your messes, sir." But Alessandro wasn't convinced. "Don't play with me. You smelled poison in the air. You knew exactly what to do. You've seen this before." Elias sighed. "Once upon a time, I was a doctor. In another country. Another life." The room fell silent again. Dr. Lewis blinked. "You're a doctor?" "I was," Elias said softly. "Until pride cost me everything." Elias's past. 20 years earlier, Elias had been Dr. Elias Vasiliev, one of the youngest toxicologists in Moscow. Brilliant, confident, and reckless. When a powerful minister's daughter died under mysterious circumstances, Elias discovered the truth. She'd been poisoned by a cleaning solvent leak. He reported it, and overnight, his license was revoked, his reputation destroyed. The minister covered it up, and Elias was forced to flee. He ended up in America with no credentials, no home, and no family. The only job he could get was as a janitor. So, he cleaned hospitals, the same places he once led as a doctor. And every night, as he pushed his mop through silent hallways, he prayed for one chance to use his knowledge again, not to prove himself, but to save someone who mattered. Back in the present, Alessandro listened, his face unreadable. "So, you were punished for telling the truth." Elias nodded. "And since then, I've kept silent, until today." Alessandro's jaw tightened. He was a man who lived in shadows, a man who bought loyalty and silenced truth. But Elias's calm honesty disarmed him. It reminded him of his late wife, the one who used to tell him, "Not every battle is won by power, Alessandro. Some are won by heart." He turned to Dr. Lewis. "Find out who's responsible for this contamination. I want every record checked." Dr. Lewis nodded, already pale with guilt. But Elias spoke up. "You won't have to look far. It wasn't sabotage. It was negligence." "What do you mean?" Elias pointed toward the lower storage room on the maintenance floor. "They store chemical cleaners too close to the oxygen supply. One leak, one careless hand, and the whole tank becomes a death trap. I've warned them before. No one listened." The truth hit Alessandro harder than a bullet. His son hadn't been attacked. He'd nearly died because someone ignored a janitor's warning. Later that night, when the hospital emptied and the media swarmed outside, Alessandro walked quietly into the janitor's closet. Elias was folding his uniform, preparing to leave before the chaos began. "You're not going anywhere," Alessandro said firmly. Elias looked up, weary. "Sir, my job is done. Your son is safe. You think I'm letting you go back to mopping floors?" Alessandro laughed bitterly. "You saved my blood. I owe you everything." But Elias shook his head. "You owe me nothing. Just promise me you'll make the doctors listen next time. Not to men like me, but to the truth, wherever it comes from." Alessandro paused. Then, in an act that would have been unthinkable for a mafia boss, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. "You could live like a king, Elias. Work for me. Be my private doctor." Elias's eyes softened. "I've already lived like a king once. Now I'd rather live like a man." Alessandro stared at him for a long time before tearing the check in half. "You're a strange man, Elias." "Maybe," Elias said with a faint smile. "But strange men sometimes clean up what others can't see." They both laughed quietly for the first time in days. 2 weeks later, Mateo woke up fully, weak but smiling. He didn't remember much, only a gentle voice whispering, "Breathe, young man. The air is clean now." When Alessandro told him who had saved him, Mateo insisted on meeting Elias himself. The old janitor entered the room awkwardly, holding a small paper flower he'd folded from a napkin. "For you," he said softly. Something clean and simple, like life should be. Mateo smiled. Dad says you're the reason I'm alive. Elias chuckled. No, you're alive because you're stronger than the poison. Alessandro placed a hand on the old man's shoulder. I don't believe in saints, but maybe I've met one. The twist ending. A month later, Elias was found gone. No address, no forwarding contact. Just a note left in his locker. To whoever finds this, don't ignore the quiet ones. Sometimes the answer is sweeping the floor beside you. Evu. But when the hospital reviewed his locker contents, they found something else. Old photographs of Elias in a white coat, standing in front of a research lab with the words Toxicology Division, Moscow engraved behind him. Next to it, a yellowed newspaper clipping. Whistleblower doctor disappears after exposing government scandal. Dr. Lewis, holding the paper, whispered, he wasn't just a janitor. He was a hero hiding in plain sight. And that's when Alessandro did something unthinkable. He ordered his men to donate $2 million to build a new hospital wing in Elias's honor. It was named the Clean Air Ward, dedicated to the truth tellers. From that day, every new doctor in St. Harlow's learned one lesson. Never underestimate the voice that speaks softly. Moral: the measure of a person's worth isn't in their title, education, or power, but in their courage to act when others stand frozen. Wisdom often wears humble shoes, and truth sometimes speaks with a whisper. Outro, narrator voice. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that every voice matters, no matter how small. What would you have done if you were in Elias's shoes? Would you have spoken up or stayed silent? Backend Index Pointing writes subscribe for more true stories that remind us miracles still walk among us.